call the September 25th regular board meeting of the Board of Public Works to order. So we can have everyone stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A moment of silence. Thank you very much. So we have all 5 board members here: Barbara Curtis, Preston Lee, Richard Nichols, and Bob Heffernan. The mayor, Andrew Williams, is here. Austin Kalaman, our general manager, and Robin Davis, assistant general manager, and Mike Hoffman is our legal counsel. So first item, the consent agenda. Do you have a motion to approve, or would anyone like something to be extracted?
Just for everybody's note, Barbara did provide comments and revisions to the minutes, which they were already provided to Sharon. They were very minor. So she went ahead and made those changes. So if anybody has any further comments, we can include them, but we can just approve via those changes.
Do you have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Say, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Opposed?
what's it?
I think we ought to discuss some of these things.
Oh, that's what I just asked.
No. Well, you can even find my spreadsheet here.
So where are we now?
Yep, so no, just, so the motion carried, and so the consent agenda was passed. But if it be the will of the board, Bob, if you wanted to talk about, you had specific questions on a particular item?
Well, I wanted to note, maybe just generally for the public, that
Well, just real quick, Bob, is it a treasurer's report, or is it which?
one of the spreadsheets on finances.
Yeah, so what I would recommend then is if you can entertain a motion to discuss the treasurer's report, and then Bob can make his comment.
That's a treasure motion?
I will move that we discuss the treasurer's report.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bob, floor is yours.
Just so everyone understands, Kim is not here today. Is she online?
That's what I was checking to see if she was.
No, don't worry about it. Just relax.
Okay.
Okay? What I wanted to say, I mean, in general, is that if I look at the current year stormwater budget, we've collected about $150-some thousand. And we've spent virtually all of that on maintenance and activities that are currently. So that small $7.50 payment is being spent and used with the current responsibilities. And maybe, Austin, it's fair to say, what do we do with that?
Yeah, so the other piece is you start talking about capital investment. So when you talk about like the Ocean View Boulevard project in coordination with the city, the funds have to be paid to be able to fund that. What I've said is in the past, we collect impact fees for various utilities. Stormwater's new, and stormwater was established 15 years ago roughly. It's something that we continue to keep an eye on, but it's probably the most, I don't want to call it controversial, but the most unknown of what we have as far as fees, and I think that's gonna evolve as you start to see the regulatory side of this unfold. It's something that we're continuing to keep an eye on. We always talk to our rate consultants about it. But it's very well noted, as you said. Every dime that gets collected is put back into the system.
And we had a very lengthy discussion when we raised the rates from 5 to 750. But I think your point is very well taken. We know, especially with MS4 coming down the line, that there is a lot of expense on the stormwater side.
And I guess the other part of it, the point I was trying to make in all of this, and thank you for voting me back into relevance, is that the fact that we call it stormwater doesn't mean we get all the stormwater. You know, I mean, it's not like we're out there in everybody's backyard or in everybody's, it's a very limited set of pipes and discharges, mostly that go to the canal. But, for example, there are places over on the beach where there is no storm sewer. And if there was one, we'd maintain it. But since there isn't, it's not really BPW kind of responsibility.
Yeah,
That's
and I
what,
think just to emphasize what you're saying there is that the stormwater is really, the main purpose is to keep the city streets drained. But there are areas in a low-lying city like we are that you can't do it, like on the beach side. It's not from a lack of want or desire, but it would require building something like New Orleans has or Houston with giant pumps to pump out because there isn't enough elevation. So I think your point is well taken.
I did have another question for Kim that I sent over earlier, just on, but that's how you all budget, because I can't figure it out. In terms of how you spread months out, because if I look at year-to-date, we're kind of doing okay, but in terms of, but what happens as the shoulder season happens through the winter when revenues are lower? So I'll take that up with her separately. So thank you.
All right, moving on then.
Do we have to do something else?
No. Infomart report. Jeff?
Good afternoon. So, update on the Headworks project. Essentially, as of now, almost all of the work has been completed. The new motors for the screens are going in tomorrow. We did upgrade from red to yellow, as everyone can see. That was before everything came online. The compactor is online, the piston grid is online, both new screens are online. The dumpster is no longer being utilized, which everyone's excited about. We are looking at possibly having the EQ tank cleaned out now with the new screens in line to try to get us back to a fresh start with that.
Do you have any idea when that's going to happen?
I had them come out, I'm waiting on a quote for that.
Chesapeake Environmental.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Last month, we did have to rebuild pump 1 at pump station 4. It's actually performing better than it had been before. We also had to replace a VFD that went up for unknown electrical issues. We had a blowout there. We're not sure what happened.
Any reason on pump 1? Not any, because previously we've had them where like somebody would, somehow a bolt got into the sewer
We
system.
were having issues with it losing prime. It just wasn't functioning properly.
Okay.
So after the rebuild now, we've actually increased the flow from that pump station up by nearly 200 gallons a minute over our previous best. We did have, myself and another employee, we did attend Gorman Rump Academy in Ohio to learn more about those particular pumps, which is a really good class. Spent 2 days out there. After that's when we came back, we did the rebuild, Learned a lot during that. We also attended TriCon this year and talked to someone, which a quote has actually gone out, and a PO was issued today to install an aeration system at one of our troubled pump stations to reduce fog at Pump Station 19, which is in Pilot Town.
Behind Harbor Healthcare, and fog, Barbara, fats, oils, grease.
Yeah, I know. Thanks, though.
We also did have issues due to the cross-connection break. So during that time period, we did staff the plant 24 hours a day for 3 days to maintain the screens and make sure that they stayed in operation. We have also ordered a new pump for our non-potable system to get that back up and running the way it should be. Pump Station 15, which is Port Lewes, we have an issue with. If you note, that is one of the pump stations we have not had a backup pump for. We had one of those pumps go down last week. I've gotten a quote for a new pump, and that pump has just been sent out for a rebuild. So I'll get that quote over to you also.
While you're on the pump station list,
Yes.
I'm having trouble understanding the rating system.
Essentially, I just put 1 through 10 being how critical, 1 being not an issue, 10 being massive problem right now.
So I would suggest adding a definition or an explanation of that on the chart. Because I had to go through it to try to figure out whether, but secondly, can you help with, I mean, grading something a 5 versus a 4, what is your grading criteria?
So some of that comes down to the condition of the station now, and also a factor I took into account for that was how critical the station is as a whole. So for instance, Pump Station 4, I believe, was rated as a 5. That particular station is not in bad condition. However, due to how critical the station is, any problem there I feel is more critical than it might be at another station.
I guess what I'm questioning is, and I don't know how the board feels, is red, green, blue, red, green, blue,
Red, green, yellow?
yellow, like we do on all the other ones?
We could do that, if that would be more
appropriate,
comfortable.
or- Because I'm not quite sure how to differentiate between a 4, 5, or a 6.
Okay, but interestingly, there are some 2s, which I understand to be important. Near term, is that correct?
You said 2s?
2s? Yeah, like Pump Station 2, Pump Station 3, you have a 2 of 10.
Yes, so the reason that we put that low is those pumps are brand new, they've just been installed.
Okay,
Everything is,
2 is good.
yes.
That's why I was asking, a rating scale that,
So I believe the worst 2 that we had on there would have been Pump Station 17 and Pump Station 15,
Yeah.
which I believe both received a 9. Pump Station 17, we had the discussion last month, we've spent an outsized amount of money to rebuild those pumps. Pump Station 15 is the pump station that we just had an issue with. That pump is going up.
I liked the fact that you are giving us a priority list for the pump stations. You've broken them out from the work orders. But I noticed also the work orders this time only cover preventive maintenance. So there was nothing in there, for instance, about, which one?
I'm not sure why we would not have had corrective maintenance
Yeah,
in those.
nothing
It
about,
may have cut off on the end of August.
well, 817, you had a call out, 828, you had a call out, and they're not on the work orders list.
I'd have to go back and double check those.
Those were both for pump station 17. One was 17B and the
Yes,
other one was
so what we
17.
had the pump station 17B, which
Yeah.
is also 34, is in the back of Hauling Cove. We had a bad low-level float,
By the way, it's Hewling.
Hewling.
Yeah.
I
There's
was
no
unaware
A
of that.
in there.
And 17 is in the front. 17, we had a float go bad. 17B, we had a low-level float go bad that confused the pumps. It was reading both high level and low level at the same time, so the pumps couldn't activate. But in the future, I'll make sure that all call-outs show up on our maintenance list.
Thank you.
I guess one other, you got some 6s on here. Should we start worrying about them?
I would say that if we're going to move forward in correcting the pump stations, they would be something to look at, but they're not in critical condition at this moment.
Should we?
It would be beneficial.
Oh, he did say pump station 19, they are doing the aeration system, right?
Yes.
Is that in place already, or is it just ordered and to be installed?
We just got the PO out today.
Okay.
And that is a system that we'll see how it does, and if it's beneficial. There are other ones that have fog issues.
Yeah.
So it's something that we can use in other places. We even talked about it at Pump Station 4 when we were having the heavy ragging, was putting something in there that kept everything circulated.
California Avenue seems to have a lot of repeat problems.
It's a very low spot. It's very low. It's the lowest spot in that whole area. All the water drains. It usually sits underwater during heavy rain events. But now take notice that a lot of these, like the pump stations that you see here, we're also doing the FEMA grant for analyzing pump stations within the floodplain that GMB's working on. So there's a lot of items that may be on here that could be incorporated in the initial design coming out of that practice.
I think that covered everything on my end.
Considering the pumping stations, it always bothers me on the critical issues where we don't have pumps, replacement pumps in stock for them. Is that, I guess we're whittling that down as we replace some issues that.
So my hope is
happen from
with
month to
certain
month.
situations, for instance, with pump station 15, we're going to have the pump that went out rebuilt, and we're also going to buy a backup pump to put in now, so that should eliminate the lack of backup pump for that station.
I think this list has been becoming shorter and shorter.
We have not
I mean,
purchased.
We're not doing it on a systematic way that, we purchase a pump every month, every other month, or every third month for different pumping stations. It seems like we're more responding to things and fixing them that way. Is that accurate?
Yes.
There's, some of them are difficult, like that pump station 17, it's actually pumping into a 4-inch force main. All right, it's pumping into a 4-inch force main for a station that's very small. So you need a pump that's astronomically large, and it's running single phase, which is even more convoluted. But there was 3-phase there, so we're talking about transitioning to 3-phase, putting pumps in there that could be used at other pump stations instead of having this one-off pump that would be at pump station 17.
But we're good to get that list down. So it's-
Yeah, and
Yes.
just scanning the two lists, the majority of them on this list are rated 4 or better. So, I'm not saying that we shouldn't have them, because
A
pump
question,
station rated 1 can still fail.
Looks like you're busy enough with what you have right away.
Well, another note is that all of the newer pump stations, we don't have backup pumps for, because when the pump stations were installed, backup pumps were not purchased. However, the pumps are all less than a year old, or within the last couple of years, so I wouldn't say that it's critical to have them on hand, but it would be beneficial.
But they're included on that list that you
Is there any way you can standardize some of those and have one pump that might,
Austin and I have been working very hard to do that.
That's the
It's, a
goal.
lot of it comes down to what we need at that pump station, and whether we have a pump in service that will fit that need.
It's exactly what we talk about every single time we talk about each station, anything that needs done. The first thing we say is there another pump? So is there a retroactive, can I take a pump out of pump station 1 and use it for pump station 3? Obviously 3 not being the same equivalent, but the smaller stations, if we have redundancy, and then you go up to the big stations where you have your big Gorman Rupp like T8s, the big boys, can they be retroactive between 4 and 3 or 8? So
So an example, with pump station 17, our biggest focus has been finding a pump that we can replace the current pump with.
Yep.
That we already have in service at another pump station. So that way the spare pump has redundancy among multiple stations.
I see we've gotten quotes for the generator for pumping station 4.
Yes.
Didn't want you to have a heart attack this meeting.
Okay, all right.
I've been in talks with GMB as well as Austin. We actually just spoke, we're gonna have a sit-down meeting and discuss everything and see what the best path forward would be for that.
Yeah, we're going back and forth between backup generation or a bypass pump.
Ah, I wondered about that. What exactly was involved in making that decision and when the meeting will be?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's, yeah, I mean,
so it's not that we're going to do both.
no. The initial quote from Fidelity was in 180. for a
185.
backup generator, and it was a 100 kW, which is pretty, I mean, for reference, our bypass pump from Godwin was 70,000, 60,000. But we're trying to kind of find the happy medium because the Godwin we have may not be 100% size to handle the flows of pump station 4, which means you would have to upsize the bypass pump at 4. But then if you go with a bigger pump at 4, then can that be used at any other station? So it's kind of cost benefit.
And I assume you're looking at, for getting commonality of inventory, if a pump station is slightly smaller, upsizing the pumps so that you wouldn't have to buy spare pumps for it?
Yeah, when you can, because we
Yeah,
do have, like Fisher's Cove is a very small, what are they, ones? Are they half horsepower or 1
I
horsepower?
believe it's a 1.
Yeah, they're small.
Yeah, not going overboard, but
Yeah.
I mean, trying to get classes of pump stations versus sizing it,
Yeah.
which would save you money on the upfront capital, but it costs you money in the inventory.
So when is that meeting scheduled?
For the bypass pump?
Yeah,
We're gonna shoot for probably either later this week or beginning of next week.
okay.
And is there any update on the crane repair?
That's it's an agenda item.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Never mind, I hadn't gotten there yet. All right, any other questions?
Last note also, we did install, and I'd like to thank Austin for this, with his help, we did install the new influence sampler in the headworks that Austin procured for us for no cost.
Yeah.
Oh, all
Where'd you
right.
get that?
AWWA. There's an auto sampler. It's expensive too. I think it saved like $5,000 or $10,000 on it. It's a Hawk auto sampler.
Wait a minute. Back up. How did you?
Look, I got an email.
Don't ask.
I
Yeah,
got
I
an
won't.
email. Got an email, and we basically said, yeah, we're interested, and they sent them out. Anybody that was interested, you could sign up for it. You filled out the form, and then they shipped it to us. And it's a lot better than what
paid
we
for
had.
it.
Yes.
No,
We didn't, they're giving them away.
yeah, yeah.
I had a couple other questions. The charts for the contaminant trends. You've got one for effluent biological contaminant trend previous 12 months. And then you've got effluent nutrient trends previous 12 months. And they look exactly the same, and they're covering the same contaminants. I wondered, is there a message there that I'm missing?
That would be the system that, what page are we on here?
Page 4 and 5.
Last chart in 4, first chart in 5.
Yeah.
Looking at this page here. No, I think that, honestly, that chart just got double pasted.
Yeah, you can see,
Okay, it's got different titles, so I wasn't sure.
That chart just got double pasted on that particular one.
So are we missing one?
I do not believe we are, but I will double check.
it says total nitrogen under both of them.
Yeah, I know. I just was confused. Okay. And then my other question was, on the maintenance fee expenditures, page 7, you have a pump for the screen system. Is that for the new headworks? Are we already having pump failures?
No, it's
No, a
redundant.
different screen system?
It's the, is it the second flight? Second flight pump?
Are we talking, is this the hydrostall pump?
It was Lowe's, it was on the bottom, page 7.
That was for the submersible pump that we had in place prior to the new flight pump coming online. So before the headworks was completed, we had a submersible pump that we would drop into a container to pump out into the dumpster. And that pump went up and we had to replace it.
Oh, okay, thanks. That was all I had.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks.
Moving on, President's report. So we've continued to have, last month we had a BPW Sussex County Rehoboth Beach workshop on the outfall pipe. And there's another one scheduled October 7th.
Yeah, tentatively.
It's 9 AM. Yeah, and it's not posted on their calendar yet. And there may be some things that going on in Rehoboth Beach that may make that change. But at this point, it's Monday, October 7th. Attend the mayor and city council. We've had several meetings, including a special BPW board meeting on the canal crossing. At this point, I really want to thank all of our crews, the electrical, water, wastewater department. We've had a heck of a last month. As everyone's aware, there were 2 pipe breaks, including the one under the canal. We had a tree fall on a line, and the line concurrent with the first break. So the electrical crews were out working one emergency while we were out working the other. And the crews, as usual, did unbelievable efforts and were completely supportive of each other. So I think everyone who's ever met any of our crews would agree. They are definitely a worthy group. We had a DMAC meeting last week, which was very good. DMAC had invited 4 organizations to present: the American Public Power Authority, Sierra Club, I can't remember the other 2, but it was a panel discussion on the state of the industry.
That was pretty depressing.
Depressing but informative.
Yes.
I think it was a better idea than the normal,
Yeah.
Yes.
because you usually just had the head of the organization speak for, a half an hour, 45 minutes, and this panel discussion I thought was a lot more interesting and informative.
And Kimberly Schlesinger, who's the head of DMAC, was the person who asked the questions of all the individuals. And, Kimberly's a great person, very knowledgeable, but to bring in the variedness from between the Sierra Club and the electrical industry, I think was very meaningful.
Yeah.
One of the things I think we need to have be very careful of, we've got a lot of things on our plate right now. between the canal crossing, the wastewater treatment plant, the strategic plan, and other things. And we need to prioritize our demands on the staff, and frankly, on the board also. I think we're getting to the point where we need to go a little bit into the triage mode of, things that aren't urgent, pushing them, and so we can focus on the details of what's critical right now. The canal crossing, we're going to be discussing that later on, but things are falling into place there. Wastewater treatment plant, like I said, we've been meeting with Sussex County and Rehoboth Beach, and there's nothing really new on our side, and we'll go into it a little more. Going to put a temporary hold, going back to the triage, in that I was pushing to have an electrical resiliency mitigation team. And we have 2 individuals in town who are very interested in helping out that came from the industry. But I think given the other priorities, going to probably push that until, January next year. It's already October. And then the other one is the question on, we have a strategic plan meeting scheduled for next Monday. And, what's that? 2 Mondays? Oh, that's right. It's the same day as Rehoboth Beach. And what the board's feelings are on is this meeting to discuss what's in the report and potentially adding some items? Because I do agree that there are 2 items when we developed it that were not on the table, PFAS and lead and copper specifically. So they need to be added into the strategic plan. But my vision was that this first meeting that we were going to have as a board on October 7th was to get the board's thoughts on it versus inviting outside groups to participate.
Well, it might be more beneficial if we got the outside group's information so we could consider them as a board, rather than the other way around. There might be ideas that come from our constituents that might start us thinking about options that maybe we hadn't already.
But the way we started this was with a questionnaire to all the constituents. So in Austin, I don't remember what the response rate was, but I think it was.
I can't remember. I want to say, do you remember, Robin? It was over 300.
How many
So maybe
were from
10%.
what percentage of those were from one district specifically?
One district.
Yeah, I think the Burton subdivision, we got a lot of comments from that, maybe, that's what I understand. So
Well,
they
there's
need-
only,
they
there's
need-
what, how many residents in Burton subdivision?
80-ish.
Yeah, so I mean, that would still leave over 200 from everyone else.
You got it kind of collectively all over the board. We didn't, I don't think, we asked for address? Yeah, she may have broke it down. The idea was, the question that comes up is, do you guys want to have a conversation, because collectively, because of FOIA, you haven't been able to talk about what has transpired since the start of this. So it really comes down to whether you want to have that discussion first and then lead that into further, or vice versa, and Mike probably is getting ready to smack me on the back.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I mean, that, it's, I'm glad, see, that makes me feel good. It means you're aware. So you're gonna have your meeting scheduled on the 7th. That's the time to discuss as a board where you can have your initial discussions. And if in that meeting you wanna talk about how you do additional outreach, or if you wanna do additional outreach, then the time to do that is at that meeting. You can plan how you do that and where you take it from there. But it really is a discussion at that meeting.
just, so everyone think about it.
Got it?
Duly smacked. All right, that's all I had.
My turn?
Mr. General Manager,
Just circling back, so right now, all residents of Donovan Smith are hooked up, so we are working through paving and final punch list items. Also, congratulations to Sharon. We kind of created a new role for her, which was Special Projects Coordinator. And that kind of transpired since she also passed and got her bachelor's degree from Liberty University. So congrats to her. We also met about the Rehoboth Beach and Sussex County staff, did the presentation that Tom mentioned to the commissioners on 9/9. We continue to meet with the consultants on the salary survey, job structure, and job descriptions. Sent mailings out for Lead and Copper and UCMR 5. We are looking to do our submission for Lead and Copper here in the next couple weeks. And then I actually took a trip with the Infomark folks to Frederick County, their wastewater treatment plant in Maryland. Very big, about a 40 million gallon plant, and it uses MBR. So it was pretty interesting to see how they run their MBR facility compared to ours. You cannot fathom 80 foot deep wet wells. I mean, it is something, when you start walking down and you look up, it's tremendous. So that's all I had.
and just to reiterate on Donovan Smith, this has been a project we've been working on for a long time, and with the city's annexation of them and the grant that we received, this is a big effort. The people deserved clean water, and now they have it. So I think kudos go out to all the parties that were involved in this going back. It's got to be going back at least 5 years, I think.
Oh, it's way before that. I have a file that's 15, 20 years.
So
I have a question about the postcards for the lead and copper rule.
Okay.
Why were they sent out twice?
So we did the original batch, and then what ended up happening is, I'm gonna give you the easiest way to explain this. So we're using a company called 120 Water, and 120 Water took a bunch of data that we had, and we sent it off to them, and so they inputted that, and then they actually, the state of Delaware represents after 1988. After 1988, they show that, lead was outlawed, so any service that was installed wouldn't be lead. So we went through a couple different variations with them, and we cleaned up a lot. And on the second round, that was the cleaned up version of the lead and copper. So you could have gotten one the first time and then gotten one the second time. The second round was much more refined versus the first round. The data was a lot more.
I didn't get a second one, that means my house was built after that period.
Yeah, those that got the second one were the ones that are unknowns.
were there any that were added?
Added to,
I mean, was it just culling the first list down, or were there properties that didn't get the first mailing?
I think it's a
Or
little bit of mixture of
addition.
both. Yeah,
Didn't everybody get the first mail?
no, because you wouldn't have, you look at, Politown Village, you look at Lewes Waterfront Preserve,
Oh.
all those were built after.
So you,
And we had as-built drawings. It's just, just so we can so the public can understand. So through this process, the EPA basically says that as part of the lead and copper rule, the board has to identify both the board side of the service and also the private side of the service. And then once you go into, and this will unfold and we'll have continued discussions, but the way that we envision this and the way that we read what the new lead and copper rule is, the board has to facilitate the replacement of private side services. And there are a lot of questions that come down with that because you start talking about funding mechanisms and how the board is gonna be able to fund this. There's money out there. I can tell you that we've already had conversations with the state, and that money is geared specifically towards underserved communities. And they define underserved as 8 different categories of underserved. And it is, when I tell you it's not clear as day that we fit into one of those 8, you're talking about private side replacements, which you do not capitalize because it's not an asset that you own. So then you're talking about, okay, so where does that fit? Does that fit in capital? No, because it's not capital asset. So it fits in O&M. When we were at the conference, they talked about what others are doing to, through this process. There's a lot of public messaging you have to do. Some are doing projects where they're replacing, look at the 4th Street project, right? You're going into older sections of town, you're replacing services, and they'll team up to do private side replacements if they come across services that are lead, galvanized, et cetera. Some are actually doing it in a different way where they're going and saying, customer A, you can go to plumber, A, B, or C, Sherman, Caswell, whoever it may be. They can go get a quote, the board would approve it, and then they would go through the replacement and the board would have to pay for that. And whether it got funded through another source is a question if we fit that piece of underserved.
So the people who responded that they didn't know what's the next step? When can they expect to have somebody from BPW or a contractor come out and
That
dig?
is what we're working through. You're talking a massive amount of information right now. Just so everybody understands, we have 6 staff in that department. So you're either going in the consultant route to identify, or we're going into utilizing our staff to be able to identify. And then you even start going down, okay, what's identification? Is it right behind the curb stop? Is it halfway in the yard? Or is it inside the home? And is inside the home as it comes in the wall through the crawl space, does that signify the same material that's being used out in the yard? Those are the types of things that we're going through.
I was kind of curious because, living in the historic district, and a lot of those houses in Ship Carpenter were moved in from elsewhere.
Yep.
And I have no idea if the internal pipes were replaced.
Yeah.
That is not part of this stuff.
Yeah.
2 foot, how we understand it, 2 foot inside the crawl space or to the first valve.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so the public generally knows any house built before the 1980s
Right.
probably had lead solder, and the brass fixtures all had lead alloys in them. So,
And we're not the only ones. This is a national thing. So we're taking it as we go. All of our data, our initial data needs to be submitted by October 16th. So that's what we're working towards. And then we will work off of that to trim down. I think, what is it, Robin, 10 years? There's a 10-year window to work towards replacement of unknowns. That's identify and replacement if that comes back. And I think the plan is you have to do a certain percentage every year for 10 years of the amount that you have.
Gee.
Yeah.
And you also have the backflow preventive policy. When's that have to be? That's happening soon too, isn't it? Over the next couple of years?
Yeah, there's going to be an additional letter go out. From what I'm gathering we're using HydroCorp to help assist us with that. The main focus originally is going to be for commercial properties, because they're the ones that are more hazardous concerns, and then we'll move back into the residentials where there's less.
You have a deadline on that, don't you, going forward?
No, not as long as we start doing the inventory, yeah. Correct.
That's
And
good.
it's the same thing on PFAS too. All your testing, your UCMR5 testing, your progression there.
Yeah.
So it's all of it kind of coming down at the same time.
Okay. If there's any other questions there, we'll move forward. Open forum, general discussion on the acceptance of Old Town at White's Pond, BPW improvements. Information, discussion, and action. Austin, Robin, and Mike. Oh, and G&B.
Yeah, so I'll kick this one off, Robin, you can chime in, and then Mike can read by title only, or if questions have for Mike. Long story short, this is Old Town at White's Pond, there's 4 utilities, water, sewer, storm, and electric. All of that has been completed, it's been inspected, there's a letter from GMB on the inspection. The electric, we went through, we verified as-built, there were some easements that were documented. Those easements actually have been recorded, so we have that. You'll also note in here that the maintenance bonds are also a condition of this acceptance. The maintenance bonds, I've already talked to the developer. Once this is approved, the maintenance bonds would be procured. I would have to relinquish the originals once I've received the maintenance bonds. So the performance bonds would be relinquished once we receive the maintenance bonds. Those amounts are listed in here as well. Am I missing anything?
The only thing I would just confirm, and it's in the resolution, so the maintenance period, the 1-year period, does not begin to run until we actually get the maintenance bond. And so that's a condition, and then, you know, that period will not run until we get the bond.
And this is only for the BPW portion of this project. Cities is separate as far as acceptance.
Do I have a motion to have the resolution read by title only?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. President, members of the board, resolution number 24-006, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Board of Public Works of the City of Lewes accepting the utility improvements for the Old Town at White's Pond development. Mr. President, resolution number 24-006 has been read by title only and placed before the board for its consideration and adoption.
Questions? A motion to accept the
Motion to
resolution?
approve?
Motion
To
to approve,
approve.
I'm sorry.
Yes, so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right. So the next one, this is open forum general discussion on a proposal of antenna design, aesthetics only, for the Schley Avenue water tower from T-Mobile.
So we do have Angela Davis, who's here, and I think there may be one other person, but they were here to answer any questions you have. In your package, you'll have some examples of it. They don't necessarily represent our exact tower and what it would look like. So the goal here is the T-Mobile wanted to get your feedback on whether you would consider something of this design. My understanding, and Angela and team can provide some feedback. This is a technology that uses magnets, so there's no bolting that I understand of to the tower itself. How we envision this is if the board's comfortable with the aesthetics of this, they would work towards doing more engineering evaluations, and then they would provide that to us. We would probably go and receive our own feedback from consultants that we have used in the past specifically for our water towers. So with that, I'll leave it for Angela to kind of provide feedback. Mike, did you have something?
Yeah, I just want to confirm and clarify. So this is not a quote-unquote application
Correct.
that is in front of you for decision. This is an opportunity for you to hear from a potential future applicant on a concept for initial feedback, but you are not making a decision, and there isn't an application before the board for decision at this time.
A question though, why? I mean, is what we have now failing, or is
No,
it?
no. This is T-Mobile's request to have it to expand their network.
So the things that are on there now, will they remain up there?
Yes, this is in addition to.
That's AT&T and.
Yeah.
Verizon,
Verizon.
This is for the existing water tower?
yes.
is
And also, the reason they're asking to put this up on top of the tower, they did a site visit, there's not enough room on the existing catwalk to
Right.
put their antennas, because the ones that are existing have taken up all the space.
And a design.
And what about
Scroll down to the pictures.
wind resistance
Yeah, that was gonna be my
to such an
question.
installation?
Because while this is about aesthetics, has
Yes,
this design been used for the wind loadings that we have here on the coast?
Yes, it has. They've used this many times. It's a magnetic corral. They've started installing these about 2012, and they have done these in high wind areas.
So are the units, I know they're not yours, that are up there now, do they have to be moved or can be added to this, or how's that work?
So you can keep everything currently how it is if you like, but there will be space for additional carriers on this corral.
And the other question is, I assume you're aware that we're putting up a brand-new water tower.
Correct. We did discuss that with T-Mobile. Unfortunately, it was too far away from this location to fill the areas that currently do not have coverage.
Do these units extend higher than the existing ones?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does.
Yes, they will.
Look behind
Well,
you.
there's existing ones up there, I didn't know if that was going to.
So currently, the existing antennas are on the corral, which is about halfway up the bowl. Ours will be on top. There is a handrail up there currently for your access to the ports and stuff, the hatch. But so it'll probably be, I would say, about 4 foot higher than the existing handrail to the top of the antenna.
I know you said you've installed these in high wind areas. Do you have data on what happens to them during hurricanes?
We actually do, and I can get that from the manufacturer. They've had installs similar to this even in tornado areas that survived and had no issues after inspection.
Well, our tower wouldn't survive a tornado, so.
You know, I'm in real trouble when I start talking about aesthetics. Is there an alternative? Because these aren't like good looking.
yeah, right.
I mean, it looks like an engineer designed it. But I'm afraid that electrical engineers care more about style and so on, and I think this must have been mechanical engineers.
Hey, we design nice bridges.
I mean, is there an alternative that's different?
So if you're looking for something a little less conspicuous, they have what we call a tripod mount, which would be placed at each antenna location. But then any future co-location would need to either install the same similar type mount in the future. And then it's gonna, I think it kind of ends up being kind of messier looking.
Any other carrier? I mean, we've already got AT&T and Verizon on that tower.
Right, so Dish could be a potential future carrier. Also, just to make you aware, we did work on the last upgrade for Verizon. And when they did that upgrade, they had, I don't think they've installed it yet, but they're gonna be in the process of adding kickers, because that catwalk is currently, when they put the new antennas up, it'll be overstressed. So they're gonna have to add a kicker to support that additional loading. So really nobody else can go on that handrail. So this is the next best option is up top,
That's what led to this discussion.
right?
There's no additional space and capacity on the handrail, which is leading to this alternative, which is before.
Right.
Can you lower them? Because it looks like they really are extending pretty high into the air, I mean, and very visible.
And then they're all different heights too. I mean, why are some smaller?
So that's based on the antennas that T-Mobile uses. So currently there's several different models based on 5G, different band waves that they use.
Can't they be lowered down to be closer to the top of the tank rather than sticking up?
We can lower them, but they would have to be a minimum of 16 inches off the base of the tank allow for the cabling.
But it
That's
seems-
something that we can discuss with T-Mobile's radio engineers to see.
That would help.
This was their requested height based off of their studies of coverage.
Yeah, I mean, they're a lot more than 16 inches off, especially with the curvature of the tank at the top.
Well, we will also get comments from our wildlife friends, not the birds themselves, but
We've had some,
the people who, like to see birds in that area and, there have been reports of eagles and osprey and other things, not nesting up there, but going
no,
there.
they use it as a
to
perch to search.
Yeah, using it as a perch. So,
If you gave them that structure, they might build in that.
Well, they're going to actually like this better. Trust me, cell phone towers are infamous nesting grounds, especially for ospreys, eagles. I actually have a tower across the street from where I live that has an eagle's nest on it.
I think they should be lowered to the minimum height that you need. I mean,
We can, like I said, we can discuss that with T-Mobile.
But I personally think from an aesthetic perspective, going with tri-mounts rather than the whole structure would be aesthetically better.
And you guys don't have that in this packet. The only thing that you have in this packet
I
was.
understand,
was
but they
what
were asking for feedback,
Yeah,
and,
Yeah, I'd like to see what tri-mounts look like.
yeah, this is pretty obtrusive, and the water tower is very prominent.
Austin, what access do we need at the top of the tank?
I believe there was a cutout to get to the very top. So
Correct.
First, what we would have to do is coordinate with AT&T or with T-Mobile. We'll do it on multiple carriers. Like we have tower climbers that do work for us because we have infrastructure on that handrail. But if we ever had to get to the very top for an inspection or to get into the hatch at the very top where the
Right.
standpipe is, we sometimes ask for them to shut their infrastructure off from the radioactive piece, from the radio waves. But I think based off what I saw originally, there was an access point to climb up over.
Would the cables interfere with getting access to the hatch?
We haven't dug into that yet, just
Okay.
because the idea was just to get feedback.
Right.
Feedback on the design. There's a couple pieces to this, because I know the mayor may get to say this, but there's a franchise for the city that would have to go through a franchise agreement that would go through city council. You have an agreement between us on if things were to move forward, an agreement to be on the tower itself. So there's a couple moving pieces to this. This is initially just saying, hey, this is our thoughts. What's your feedback?
I think to minimize and lower the infrastructure and all the pieces involved.
And get rid of as much of the infrastructure that's not needed.
Right.
So what's the next scheduled paint date for the tower?
It was, oh my gosh, usually they're 20 plus years before you paint again. I don't know if that one was a 20 or 30-year paint job, but that was done in 2017. So, and
Didn't realize it
just,
was that long.
well, when they painted it, remember, they put a temporary tower and everybody had to move all their stuff off onto that temporary tower.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering about from a timing perspective. If down the line this does get approved, should the tower be painted beforehand?
Oh my gosh, no, I don't think you're gonna have to, unless this is a very long process, I don't think you're gonna have to worry about that.
No. Also, that's kind of why we went with them. And so there's two types of designs we've could have gone with here. Some of this, the pretty standard design is to weld. They call it stud welding, and we call it a cold weld in the industry, to the top where the mounts would be fixed. But then what happens is what we talked about, where you have to relocate everything off the tank. These are magnetic. So when you guys go to paint this tank, these magnetics have a special release. So the corral can be lifted off this tank while you guys do maintenance.
Any other feedback for them? I think what I've heard was lower the elevation of the antennas, provide the alternative of the tri-mounts to reduce, and it's all to reduce the volume of what's up on top there.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I guess for the public, the alternative to this is that you'd have to build your own tower someplace else. So it's not like just saying no is going to get rid of the air clutter.
Right.
How many antennas are intended to be up there? Is it half a dozen or?
So T-Mobile's using 9 total antennas here.
Equally spaced, essentially?
So what they call is, they divide them into 3, what they call sectors. Each sector covers a separate area based off of need. So typically, a lot of areas, it will be equally spaced, but due to the beach being on one side and then a high residential area being on another, and then another high residential area on the other, it's not quite equally spaced here. So we're more northwest, southwest, and southeast.
It would seem like the individual supports would provide a significantly less structure up there.
Yeah, the tripod thing. And presumably, we would pick the color of the corral, so it wouldn't be sticking out like a sore thumb, right?
Correct. They can be painted to match the tank, or some people like to do them the color of the sky.
I believe it's Sherman-Williams Spaceship Gray.
All right.
Who owns the corral then? T-Mobile then owns that corral?
Good question.
I believe, yeah.
So then, because you brought up the thing about relocating the other antennas, and do you know much about this space? Because you mentioned a franchise agreement. So does this now mean that other carriers may come to us and say, well, we demand, we also get a more modern, and I mean, essentially, they're getting the penthouse.
So it's a nuanced space. You can't discriminate against carriers. But so the point here though is that this is the BPW water tower. So we can put those parameters and we can have, there will be an agreement with the BPW. And again, you can't discriminate against carriers, but you can put in the parameters and the expectations. That is separate from your franchise agreement. So we are dealing with two separate things.
No doubt, but the value that the BPW in this case is providing them by let's call it a premium location.
And so that agreement includes a payment, there will be compensation, and that is the agreement part of this, that's correct. There is value to providing this space.
Okay, any other questions?
So to be clear, who gets that value? Who,
It's an agree. It's, so the use of the water tower is an agreement with the BPW, and you already have water tower agreements. And there's compensation for renting that space.
we are getting revenue, okay.
Yes.
And
We get a percentage on franchise.
you get, yeah, so he gets, okay.
All right. If that's all you need, I think you've heard from us.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Open forum, general discussion on Crane 1 proposal for the wastewater treatment plant.
So this is,
Austin and GMB.
I was gonna say, Tom, this is going back to your earlier
Right.
question in the Infomark report. So Charlie and Reggie actually had several conversations with Crane 1. The reason Crane 1 was originally involved was because they were the ones that came in and did some maintenance on that crane. And so that kind of snowballed into having a more formal proposal because of this misalignment issue that's kind of transpired and was brought to our attention. This has kind of come through the last couple months. I think some of it happened while I was out on parental leave, and GMB had the discussion with Crane 1 recently. The proposal still stands as being good. They basically came back with two solutions. One is to structurally fasten it, I believe, and add supports so that you wouldn't have this twisting motion, which comes with shortening the chain, adding a couple things here or there. The more robust solution was to do a full replacement of the crane with electric and hydraulic support, both up, down, left, and right. The recommendation from GMB was to do the just the bracing piece, which was the $31,000, which Reggie reviewed on the structural side to prevent the cavitation as the crane runs up and down the causeway. I don't know if Vince, if you want to add anything else. I tried to sum it up as best I could.
Yeah, so there's 4 columns. There'll be 4 columns that get these supports, basically stainless steel cable that attaches about halfway up on each column, and then it'll be anchored in the concrete. There's a small section of concrete, and there'll be one on each column, and they'll have turnbuckles in the middle of the stainless steel cables. And that the turnbuckles offer a way of adjusting and squaring up that platform. That's the issue. It binds up, and it's a very small tolerance. It's only fractions of an inch that it needs to be out where it starts to bind. So, you know, we met last week, Reggie and I and Charlie, and they debriefed me, you know, because they knew I was coming to the meeting. So I was asking a bunch of questions of Reggie. Reggie has full confidence that this is going to work, but better yet, we talked to the vendor, and I talked to them and said, you know, are you sure this is going to work, et cetera. He said, absolutely, they wouldn't be quoting us. And I asked him, well, how many other facilities have you done this? And he said, we've done this about 5 or 6 times already, so.
Hey, Vince, I'm sorry, Rick.
Yeah.
Vince, could you state your name and your
I'm sorry.
company because Jackie's doing the minutes.
Gotcha. I'm Vince Luciani with GMB.
Thank you.
What's the purpose? Can you explain the anchor plates that are being installed on the floor?
Yeah, that's
How that relates to the cables?
So you have these columns vertically.
Yep.
The cable's going to be approximately on a 45 degree. It'll be welded. There'll be an attachment that'll be welded on the column, steel column, and it'll be anchored with anchor. The other side of the cable will be anchored in the concrete with anchor bolts.
How far away?
I don't know. It's
10, 20 feet?
It's probably 1-to-1, so I don't know how high are those columns? They're about,
So you've got a crisscross of cables.
correct.
Does crisscross interfere with any
25?
function on the floor level?
It does not, no.
Are they adding new support?
They're adding the stainless steel cable supports,
And
correct.
will they be as tall as the crane superstructure now, or
No, they're going to go about halfway up.
about halfway?
Yeah, so they're not adding any, the steel is only the embedment steel on the floor, and then it's basically a tie back. So it's a cable from approximately 12 and a half feet up on the column, coming back to the floor with a turnbuckle that allows you to shorten or lengthen it.
Right, and that's 2 columns here and 2 columns down there,
Correct.
and that's, 2 X's, if you will, the cables?
Well, they're not going to cross because
Yeah, you're right, but,
yeah.
and there's nothing underneath where the crane runs above that needs clearance from
Well,
those
it's the
cables
operating
going
deck.
diagonally.
It's the operating deck from where you access the membranes, but
Okay.
not someplace that you can walk. On the one side, there's a handrail and it steps down, and on the other side, there's a handrail. and there's-
Okay, so nobody's going to be walking into or, equipment hitting the cables?
I mean, as far as the equipment hitting the cables, I mean, the crane goes up and down. So if you're crossing where these 45s are, you got to make sure the crane piece is above it. So the crane would travel left to right or whatever, and then vertically, it goes up and down to pull the membranes.
So there would be a support in the middle, because I think there's 6 total. I think there's 1 on each corner, and then there's 1 in the middle. Meaning 1 set. There may be.
No, it's just 4, there's just 4 that we're talking about.
So I think there's 4. I don't know if you're gonna cross, to your question, Richard. That crane may not interfere with where they cross over, right?
I'm pretty sure. I'm not 100%
Yeah.
sure, but I'm pretty sure.
But as I'm understanding, these cables are at the end of where the crane travels. And
Correct.
between the cabled ends, there's no obstruction on the floor level.
With what's being added, meaning anything being added as part of this project?
Right, yes,
No, no.
okay. Thank you.
Yep.
So do these new, I'm sorry, I'm really confused about this, without a picture or anything.
It's hard to
I'm looking
visualize.
for-
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
Do these attach to the existing superstructure for the crane anywhere?
They will attach to the columns that hold that runway. So the runway's up here, and the columns are supporting it.
The high
And
beams.
The I-beams, yeah.
Yeah, the I-beams that are set in concrete.
And it's the runway at the top where the crane rolls back and forth on, that's out of square, out of alignment, and the wheels on that runway bind because it's out of alignment. By putting these cables with turnbuckles on the columns, you're going to be allowed to pull one column in, push one column out, wherever, and you got 4 adjustment points, you're going to be able to square up that runway so that it doesn't bind up and it rolls smoothly.
So,
Here's the crane.
do we know what caused this thing to go out of, get racked like
So
that? Is it
that
just
came up on the
usage?
meeting I was on
Yeah.
last week.
Yeah.
It's just use over time.
And we know that
Down to the floor.
these cables will be
And
strong enough and
turnbuckles.
Yes.
able to actually
To
bend the columns enough.
here and
Yes.
At the top.
It's going to put, yeah,
Crane is
they're
above.
tall, they're tall,
Yeah.
you
I
know,
know the columns.
fairly slender cables, so yes.
One of the other things was shortening up the chain, because right now the chain goes all the way to the top of the grades.
Yeah.
One of the things that we talked about was, an object in motion stays in motion. And if that chain's too long, there's a lot to get hung up on, because you got all those pumps that come up. And, there could have been a time where, as an operator was
yeah.
moving that chain, or
Got
moving
caught on
the,
something.
yeah, which then, you're kicking it, yeah.
It's a pretty slender assembly.
Yeah.
And I don't know why it was built that way to begin with, why there were gussets or something welded in when it was originally designed. It is what it is, so.
And Press, one of the things that the fellow from Crane One mentioned is that in the future, if you get this misalignment, now you have the turnbuckles
Adjustments.
to adjust it.
Yeah, I understand.
Will there be a man lift required to install this?
No,
Because that's
no,
not included in the
right.
price.
No, we asked that question. Should not be required.
Okay. And will there be freight
Freight,
charges? Because
I
that's not.
don't know the answer to that question.
Some will, some won't. From experience, some won't include that. They'll do it separately, because it'll be based off the time. Meaning if they're running like a hot shot, they'll base it off what they're being charged when they put the shipment out for wherever it's coming from.
Yeah, freight is a FOB shipping point, so.
Yeah, right. We don't have to worry about the taxes anyway. That's freight, taxes, and fuel not included.
So the total price is going to be more than 31,000 because of the
Right.
shipping, handling, and the FOB shipping point.
Yeah. But you won't know that until you physically ship it. It's just
Okay,
gonna be an addition.
So it's this alternative versus another alternative,
Yeah, the
which
other,
is not recommended.
the other alternative GMB took a look at, and it was a full replacement. And it was 90.
I think it was 70-something thousand. Yeah,
And I believe it basically made the thing full electric, full hydraulic. So instead of having a chain operation to move front and back, it was hydraulically operated front to back, side to side, up and down.
And there was not another crane company that was interested in the
Yeah, I'm not
project?
sure. So,
The reason Crane One was engaged was Crane One did the original service that was done on that crane. So Crane One already had experience working on that specific one, so they got a proposal from Crane One to do this work. If there's a will of the board to go and try and find other crane companies to look at something similar, we can do so. It's just when we were going through the process, Crane One had already done their initial report, which was used to work on this proposal.
I was just surprised, from having been in that building, that the I-beams weren't attached structurally to the building. And that would seem like the easiest way to do it, and it just seems weird that,
Well, after the fact, it's not, because there's no columns directly on the building side, close to it. I mean, the original concept, if you were to just put 12 by 12 gusset plates on all the joints, that thing would be stiff as hell, heck. But, that's retrofitting design.
That's not a heavy structure that going in there. It doesn't,
No,
that thing should hold on to.
Okay, so we have a choice of $31,000 or
Go get something else. Go get
70, or put it off and go get lots of quotes.
Yeah.
And that's kind of depends on how long we think the plant is going to last.
Well-
It's a factor into that decision.
which is, part of the question, but I mean, something needs to be done now. one
Because
way
this
or
is
the
a
other.
problem now.
What are we missing while the crane can't do what it needs to be done?
I believe they can still operate it. It's just the problem is that it becomes, I wish Jeff was still here, but it becomes when you're there and you're operating it, it can become dislodged, and then you have to really work it to get it back out of that position of where it's kinked in one direction.
Reverse it.
But what is it doing
It's picking up all the cassettes for
which
cleaning.
needs to be done how often? Every day?
They were pulling them 2 times a year. That was before the Headworks project was done, so I'm gonna expect it to probably back off to once a year, now that the Headworks project's done.
But it's once a year for each of the 4 channels. So it means that, it's
Quarterly, depending if they're doing it that way,
quarterly,
quarterly.
if they stagger them, or they don't tend to do them in the summertime.
The issue with the long chain not being captured in a bag or whatever still exists.
Yeah, and that will be addressed as part of it.
But if they shorten the chain, will they still need to bag it?
I believe the bagging is up, so it's tough because you can't see pictures.
Yeah.
I believe the bagging is up closer next to the machine itself. There's a hydraulic line that comes down that kind of sticks out. And so this would prevent it from rubbing up against the hydraulic line and then.
So I want to put forth a motion. I think, Bob, you stated the 3 positions, so why don't you choose one and get started?
Well, you're not gonna like it, so I think somebody else out there. I hate to be contrary, but I would say, to Richard's point, futz with it once a quarter. And,
I'll
I'll tell you what, I'll make a motion that we accept crane 1, and then when we discuss,
You'll vote against it.
I'll vote against it. So I make a motion, we accept the $31,000 solution to this.
Is there a danger that
got a
the
second.
crane?
Need a second first.
I'll second it. I'll second it.
Okay, all those, okay, now question.
Is there a danger of the crane becoming unusable because it has already shown that it's getting bulky?
I think there's always a potential for that crane to become lodged in a position that you can't get it dislodged.
And not do even once a year?
Correct. I believe it's
Or-
becoming more frequent. I wish Jeff was here because he could provide feedback, but we were
Also,
there. We
it's
saw.
not once a quarter, because when they're operating, you have to pull the cassette, move it over, and you install the cassette, and there are multiple,
Yeah, you're doing it,
there are 4 cassettes in,
yeah, you're gonna do it a bunch of
or
times.
3 cassettes, I'm sorry.
You're gonna spend a day or a week or something doing it. I do understand that.
Do we think that any other alternative bids would be more expensive than this from an engineering standpoint?
I don't know if, I know Charlie's
Vince,
online
is that-
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know if you or Charlie had any feedback to that. I've never dealt with cranes.
I don't know, yeah, I don't have a feel for this type of equipment, but I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Infomark went directly to M2, who's the contractor doing the headworks, and had somebody come out and take a look, and I don't know if they got a quote, or if that, and I don't even know the name of that contractor or vendor, but they didn't really want to do the job.
And, as far as the pricing goes, I mean, $18,000 for stainless steel cabling doesn't sound unreasonable. So it's really the labor cost, which is the $12,000 portion of it. So,
You're right, but it's sort of a jury rig fix.
Yeah,
Right, but it's-
that's what bothers me.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a heavy piece of equipment, it's a needy piece of equipment, it's potentially a dangerous piece of equipment,
right.
and I just can't see jury rigging something like this. I think for the operator's benefit, and for safety benefit, all the way around. I think we should do it right.
Which is what?
Well, I take this. Okay, well, I think this is a very delicate,
Yeah, this proposal is not
yeah.
jury, okay.
no.
Okay.
You
I-
suggested trying to,
I thought that's what he was
this,
saying.
no, this isn't, I'm sorry. No, I think what you were considering, making the guys move the things and so forth.
I think there's a safety risk there.
Yeah,
personally.
I do too, and it's not fair.
We are also talking about keeping the wastewater treatment plant for another 3, 4, or more, 5 years.
Yeah.
So let's fix this.
This might get worse,
And,
yeah.
increase our chances of, okay, this is one more thing that we've taken care of.
All right, on that count, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
3-2.
Okay.
Open forum, general discussion on the semi-annual hydrant flushing.
So these next couple should be pretty quick. So this is just letting the board know we are aiming for October 30th and 31st, which is, I believe, a Wednesday and a Thursday. We always send postcards out ahead of time, so we're just giving you kind of a heads up for it. So yeah, that's what we're aiming for this one, the 30th and 31st.
Halloween?
Yep.
I was gonna say the same, what time would you be done?
Oh, they'll be done, because they'll do beachside second day, so they'll be done mid-afternoon.
So it's not going to interfere with trick or treaters?
No, it shouldn't.
No.
That's a
And
problem.
we'll
if it
stain
is.
the side of the streets orange. And we'll pretend that it's like Chicago. All right, open forum, general discussion on the semi-annual hazardous waste and the drug take-back day. And this is something we do in conjunction with the city, police department, staff for the drugs, and we take care of everything else.
And we're aiming for, again, this is a date that's already set, October 26th from 10 to 2. And like Tom had mentioned, we always coordinate with the city police force, so they'll be there as well. We encourage all the board members to attend, and it's usually a pretty good event. We usually bring coffee, donuts, and lunch. So,
No paint, right? You don't want to use paint.
yes,
Oh, latex.
no latex.
No latex paint.
Open it up, let it dry out, or put kitty litter in it.
Yes.
But oil-based paint's okay.
Yep,
Yes.
oil base is all good.
Or stains.
I'll just say I can't attend. I'll be in Chicago, but
We'll get you next time.
Open forum, general discussion on finance committee debt service coverage rate policy. Action, Richard Nichols and Kim.
So the Finance Committee has vetted and is included in the package the debt service coverage ratio rationale and procedure, which we have fixed at 1.25 as being the proper benchmark. And we recommend that the board accept this as be put into the policies of the board.
Questions? Discussion?
What are we at now? Multiplier?
Well, we easily meet the 1.25, which is, it qualifies for the Moody's A rating. What we are running mathematically is about 4.
Very comfortable.
Yes.
I'll make a motion that we accept this.
Second?
it's a nuance, but to approve new section 3.12 as presented.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Open forum, general discussion on Finance Committee's Developers Agreement Policy Recommendations. Richard Nichols and Kim.
This is also a policy recommendation that the Finance Committee has reviewed. It has also been vetted by our attorney, and it vastly improves the collectionability of escrow payments that the developers are required to meet. And
I'm not familiar with the term commercial. Aye, what that mean?
okay, I will defer to Mike.
Oh,
It's
never mind.
It's completely different than a reasonable time.
It is a legal term, and so whenever you get into contract drafting, there is reasonable, there's commercially reasonable. Commercially reasonable and reasonable, it depends on the context, but the idea is that, because we're dealing with, in the business sense, what is reasonable from, whether it's from a financing standpoint, from a, business practices standpoint, all of that goes into the mix to determine what is commercially reasonable.
I just, puzzled.
But it's a legal term that,
I thought so.
And is there a legal reasonable term?
no, I'm actually not aware of that.
That was one of the questions that was posed by the committee, and as well as some of the dollar values that have been worked out. And the committee recommends this for inclusion to modify the existing developers' obligations.
Do you have a motion to?
And if the board were to move, it would be motion to approve a new section 6.1.4.1 as presented.
Can I, sorry. In the paragraph 6.1.8.1 remedies,
Sorry, press, yep.
remedies in paragraph B,
Yep.
the last sentence, I think I know what it means, but it kind of seems to be an awkward way of
So
saying.
this is section B, and this is
Yeah,
the,
when at the termination of developer, and you have your retention money there, I guess that's saying any money that is not put in, needed to cover the costs that the BPW incurs will be returned to the, I guess that's what it's trying to say, but I just had to think about it for a while. The wording was a bit strange.
so that you've got, and just so we're saying the same thing. So I'll read it and then I'll
Yeah,
unpack
go
it.
ahead.
So B is, in the event of termination, all monies deposited by a developer under the terms of the development agreement will be retained by the BPW, but the retention shall not release developer or its surety from liability for developer's default. So we'll pause there. We are taking the deposited money, but it's not, that is not the cap on your damages. You are still, to the extent the developer is liable for damages, they're liable for the full damages regardless of what monies are held. So that's what that first sentence says. Then it says, in such event, however, developer and its surety will be credited with the amount of money so retained toward any amount owed. So if your damages exceed the amount, I mean, it's not that
I thought
close.
that's what I meant, but it just seemed to be an awkward
You
way
mean
of
legal drafting was awkward?
No.
That never happens.
It's clear as mud.
saying it.
Could I Not only is 6.14 new, but 6.18 is new.
So Richard, I was suggesting handling that as two separate motions. You're absolutely correct. So the first motion would be new section 6.1.4.1 as presented, and then a second motion would be.
Okay.
So move.
I move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And then the second one is a motion to approve 6.18.
1A.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Moving right along, next item, open forum general discussion on the City of Lewes ADU ordinance. So at the last city council meeting, there was a discussion amongst the city council, and also, Andrew, chime in anytime you want here, on accessory dwelling units and the changes they're going to be making to the city code. And in summary, the high level as it impacts us is that it's going to be capped at 40 units in the entire city and per year, but no more than 40 units going on. So if 2 units come off, 2 more people can go on, but the 40 unit cap is,
I think what we're saying is we're gonna allow 40 the first year and then see how it goes, and then maybe allow more. That's kind of see how.
I
that
thought what I
uptake
got
goes.
from Khalil was,
Nah,
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that what we passed is that initial year, just to see how it goes.
Yeah,
Cap at 40, and the reason for that is that the feeling is that there's a large number that already exist.
right,
It's the idea that a good number of that 40 are gonna be what comes online. And to your point, I think, well, guidance we were looking for was in section 158-2, it talks about separate building sewers required. And what both the housing committee recommended and what we've passed right now is that there's an exception. An ADU may use the same sewer service and meter as the principal home. So that's really the issue, that's an exception to that.
yeah, because there was discussion at the council meeting by several of the commission, council people about mandating separate impact fees, metering for the ADU. And that's what's before us here, is to discuss that point. I believe that this is a trial program, it's capped at 40, and we'll see how it goes. We can always change things down the line, but that redoing our tariffs and our rate structures and our impact fees for just the 40 units doesn't seem like it's a worthwhile endeavor. It's not that large of an impact. If it was an infinite number of units, then I think it would be significant, but, it's capped at, so 40 units, we have 4,000 customers, plus or minus.
So are you envisioning, as far as sewer and water, that some, maybe presently are separately metered for water and sewer?
So potentially, well, that's the question before you, which is BP metering versus, apparently there is a capability as an owner to have an internal meter so that they can track it. There is an ability to do that evidently.
Yeah, what this does is it doesn't require a separate sewer tap and a separate water tap off the main for an ADU. This is allowing the individual homeowner to essentially utilize their existing water service and sewer service, pending that it works, that they can use that, meaning tap on their side, on the customer side, their existing service, and utilize their existing service. This isn't mandating anything.
Right now, for example, they're allowed 2 out of 3. So they can have a toilet in their garage, for example, and maybe a utility sink, but not a shower. or they could have a shower and a sink, but not a toilet. So the point is, I think, what we were making in the beginning is, a lot of these things are almost turnkey. So they're plumbed, they're ready to go to be hooked up as an ADU. So to Tom's point, I think the logic of then going back in and sub-metering, maybe in this case where you're taking existing stock essentially and legalizing it, probably doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's one going up right now, that's separate building, the main building. The C has separate sewer service, and power. So,
Oh, but in that case, it's not prohibiting that. It's
You
just
don't
saying
choose to.
that you don't have
you're
to.
not anticipating that, for the most part, because it's more expensive.
What's the real?
And that's really, Bob can speak to this, the idea of these, Press, were to add some affordable housing stock in the form of something that, maybe a granny flat where an older person can stay on premises, or someone working downtown. And so the effort also is, how can you minimize their costs? Well, by eliminating impact fees, ready-to-serve fees, that can certainly make it more affordable.
Yeah, I mean, this could be mother-daughter apartments, you know,
There's all kinds of options, that were discussed. And I was head of the subcommittee that wrote this. But there's also kind of protections in here for the city that they not become one in every backyard either. If you read page 5 through there, there's a definition of what they are at the top. And then if you read down there, the owner has to live there. They have to get a permit from the city. They have to have a lease for a year. You don't want a short-term rental, that kind of thing. But there are some exist. And, we need more workforce kind of housing. I think it's actually something that will fit in, okay?
So the ask is really not like, so unless you strongly oppose what we've proposed, there's really no action. I think the way we've put it up, said is, unless you guys strongly oppose this, we're gonna move forward under this construct.
and we always reserve the right to, as the test goes on, to change.
Sure. I mean, you could have a different rate elsewhere for short-term rentals.
Yeah, that's where,
Although these would be long-term rentals.
Although, and if the future city councils decided to open this up to everyone, that would also be a change. And we could address it at that time.
Or we could perhaps have a different rate for properties that have ADUs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Boost the rate-of-serve charge
The
by a
ability
certain
to
amount.
inspect these things at least annually.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's trying to make sure they're not just cheap rental units for.
And also to make sure they are what they say they are, to Bob's point, they need to be someone that lives there full-time and all those things.
the ask from the city council was basically to have this be discussed amongst the board within 60 days of city council's last meeting. So we put it on for this meeting in case you wanted to have one more meeting in October. What we've said, or what I've said when we've spoken to the planning commission, is our policies that exist today, we would operate as normal. If somebody comes to us and says they want a second meter, we charge an impact fee based off a second meter. So it really comes down.
That's why I
to
was surprised about the one being built, so.
Yeah.
But that's fine.
All right, so,
I'm wondering, I can see not charging, an impact fee if you're not putting in a new service, but I'm not so sure about the ready-to-serve fees, whether it makes sense not to have them.
well, the
For
only argument.
people living in an
The
ADU.
only thing you have to consider is, we don't charge a different readiness to serve charge for a 6-bedroom house or a 5-bedroom house like mine, and then a cottage. So that readiness to serve charge is an average smeared over everyone.
It's based off your meter size too.
Yeah, and often.
Or service
based
size.
upon- So if you have a 3/4 inch meter or a 1 inch meter, like myself, that's what you pay your readiness to serve on.
That makes sense. Okay, that helps, thanks.
Now, once again, if things change.
Right.
We have the right to,
I mean, would it be clear if you all did take action, say we don't oppose, we're not, I don't know.
I don't see an issue with that.
so, do I hear a motion to say that we don't oppose or support the city's effort for ADUs? And we'll continue to monitor the situation.
I think I'm positive about.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I said, yeah.
Of the two,
Okay, so motion to support the city in its development of ADUs and to reserve the right to revise our tariffs and,
I think you can just simply say motion to support the ordinance as presented.
okay.
Ordinance as presented,
city
highlight
ordinance.
the aspect of lower cost housing for workers or
Yes.
some,
It does in two ways, Richard. One is through the forgiveness of the gross receipts rental tax.
Right.
So for those who are in that, keep them in a certain rental range. And then the other would be, the way they've also is, if they can show that they're working within a certain radius is another. So there's a couple of ways that.
so that's part of what we are also endorsing.
It's in the, those are all in the whereas
Okay.
clauses.
Okay,
It says here.
thank you.
Create convenient living arrangements.
It's a good point, Richard, in a way. The BPW is participating in the idea of making this affordable stock. Yeah.
Okay. So,
I'll make the motion.
there's a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Go forth.
Yes.
Open forum, general discussion on Verdon subdivision development agreement. Austin, Robin, and Mr. Hoffman.
Take the first stab. So this is development that's being done by Jerry Verdon. It's off of Kings Highway. This development agreement essentially summarizes both the city and the BPW normal development agreement language. I don't think there's anything else really to add.
It's a 5-lot subdivision.
Yeah.
Off of Kings Highway.
There
Basic standard language is what we normally do.
It's been in the works for quite a while.
There is, as you'll notice, there is a section in there, to talk about fees. The city will need to approve that at their next board meeting, hopefully. I think Mr. Verdon has been in contact with Ellen Lorraine about putting it on the agenda. They just need to fill out, it's section 11.17, talking about the attorney's fees that's getting charged. Still getting that, and I guess you can make it contingent upon having the city approve it, plus Mr. Verdon sign it, the document. But he's all in agreement with the language.
So this is our standard agreement.
Correct.
Okay.
So do I have a motion to approve the Verdon subdivision development agreement?
Conditioned on the city approving.
Condition on the city. Right.
So moved.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Open forum and general discussion on potential change orders for the caustic tank replacement at the well field. Austin, you want to lead us off on this one?
Yeah, so this is something we've been working on for quite some time. So if you guys can recall, we went into contract with Teal Construction to do the common header project. And as part of that, we were also taking a look at replacing the caustic tank. Teal is there. Teal also has their electrical contractors and everybody on site. We asked for a proposal to include a change order to include the caustic tank replacement. That's what's before you today. Teal's been very fair to us. We've done a lot of research in this. We've met with the firm that sells the product, and GMB took a look at it as well, and GMB also recommends that we take on the 2 additional options for a total of $140,074.04. For reference, this was budgeted in this year's budget at $150,000. So we knew that this was something that we were gonna move forward with. It's just this the opportunity aligned itself to include it as a change order as part of this project.
Again, is this because the existing tank is deteriorated, or?
So it's,
End of life.
yeah, it's at end of
It's well
life.
past its end of life.
Yeah, we've replaced the gaskets a couple times on it, and it is a tank that sits outside, so this would be a replacement of that. And it's something that like I said, we've kept in the back of our mind. We had it in the budget. This was the first year we put it in the budget, but we had it in there for 150.
So do I have a motion to approve accepting the Teal change order for the caustic tank at the well field?
I have a question.
Let's hold on. So you made the motion,
Second.
second? Okay, on the question?
Yeah, I think I know the answer to this, but can we reconfigure this so that we use ARPA funds for it?
So the ARPA funds were used for the water tower project. The water tower project was funded at 5.4 million. We broke the water tower project out into 2 separate projects, which the state agreed to, which was the common header and the water tower piece. This is being included in the common header section of that, so I would say no. But again, it's all being funded in the 5.4 million, so you're gonna be drawing off the 5.4, utilizing the 900 that we already have.
And are we confident that GMB will have all the
We,
paperwork ready so that we don't lose the ARPA
So
funds for
we-
the,
yep, everything's scheduled. Pre-bid meeting is scheduled for the 19th,
For the elevated storage tank,
18th.
the 18th.
Yep,
Going to bid on the 4th,
yep,
18th, and bid opening.
November 1st, yeah. So going out to bid the 4th, pre-bid the 18th, and bid openings on the 1st.
Yeah, us in that first date, it might have to change. Might have to change it to the 3rd, because I don't know if I think they require 30-day bidding period, so the 1st is 28 days.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
we'll have it.
it's imminent.
And what we talked about, Mike will be on vacation, but we can schedule, if we open on the 1st, that's the 1st of November. Open the 1st of November, we can schedule a meeting in November for award, and then we would have over 6 weeks for contract signing. And we've already talked about making sure the language is in there to utilize the ARPA funds, because they have to be contractually obligated. And nobody can really give you a straight answer, so you have to assign that it has to be written in the contract that you're using $900,000 or whatever that number is for that use, meaning ARPA
Okay.
funds.
just getting nervous.
Yeah.
Counting on you, Vince.
What is the life expectancy of this project?
So this time when we're doing it, we're putting in, so everything's gonna be heat trace taped. I think, does the entire tank get wrapped? I can't remember. I know when we talked to them, I believe it's over 10 years. Because the original tank was installed in 2012, if my memory serves me correct, is when the plant was built, was in 2012.
On the pre-bid meeting, it's
1 o'clock.
I would be surprised if the tank isn't being wrapped, because we're going to the higher caustic.
As we're going to the higher caustic, it has to be,
I'm pretty sure we talked about it. And so I can't remember.
Says heat trace and insulation.
Yeah.
What's the feeling on the 2 additional options?
We want those, the leak detection sensor and the level indicator.
That's why the GME stamp is,
Yeah.
they approve, they recommending the 2 options, and that's 140.
Okay, thank you.
I know it's not part of this, but the 50% caustic, what's happening? Are we confident that over at the wastewater treatment plant, we'll have heat in that room in time when we switch
We're
over?
continuing those discussions.
We pointed it out, it's in the GMB report on them, and we will follow through. They have been. Your concerns are duly noted. All right, so we have a motion on the table to approve the Teal construction bid for $140,000, including the 2 options. Excuse me, $140,074, $140,074.04. All in favor?
Aye.
Open forum, general discussion on the water main canal crossing update. Austin, take us away.
I was just gonna say, I know everybody met last Friday to award the contract to Teal in the spring. We had a meeting on Monday to just talk about scheduling on materials, submittals, et cetera. Submittals were already submitted, they've been approved, pipe has been ordered. Aiming for the week of the 7th, I believe, for pipe to possibly be delivered.
14.
7th to the 14th. I knew there was a 7th in there, but I think it's between the week of the 7th and the 14th, pipe would be delivered, and then scheduling the actual drill rig to be set up, and then to start the process of fusing and shooting the drill. So we're moving.
So volume of this pipe is, it's 16 inches, 40-foot sticks,
Yeah,
but the volume is going to be tremendous.
yeah.
So,
But
Well, I just wanted to say,
Thank you.
the way we left it on Friday was we had that flexibility to award HDP
Yeah.
versus fusible. We met on Monday. The fusible is available sooner. It's actually a little bit less expensive, so we made the decision to move forward with the fusible.
the HDPE was approximately 5 to 8 week lead time, I believe. And the drill rig would have had to do 2 passes on the drill because you're running a 16-inch, a little bit bigger than a 16-inch ID. It was like an 18, almost a 19-inch borehole, which they had to use, what was it, a 24-inch reamer?
They had to go an extra step in reaming, which would cause it to take a little bit longer. So for all those reasons, we went with the fusible PVC. I've already gotten a submittal on it and already returned it, so it's probably already been released for delivery.
We'll continue to update everybody. It should be, fingers crossed, a pretty quick project.
So all this is going wonderfully, and we're waiting for a couple of additional permits.
Yep.
So I have a little update on the bald eagle, if you're interested. So I think that is probably going to be a non-issue.
Yep.
I spoke to Evelyn today, Evelyn Marmeyer. She's done our permitting for us. And so when she made the application with the Corps, there's a resource that she goes to. It's a website, it's called IPAK. Don't know what that acronym stands for, but basically you put your project location and other information in, and it tells you whether you have any, bald eagles or any other endangered species. When she put that in, that resource said there were no bald eagles in this location. So we got that letter today, Austin, where she said she dug in a little bit deeper. I think the woman's name is Danielle Minter. She's with DENREC, and she's the one that sent that notice about the eagle. And basically, she said that she had heard that, and we think it's still that old osprey nest out in the marsh there, that someone saw 2 eagles in that nest. This is not someone from Denrick. When she says constituents, she thinks it's a member, Evelyn thinks that's a member of the public. So this Miss Minter confirmed, well, she said that that was not confirmed, that it was just a report. The other thing is the breeding season for the eagles, when these, and it's only during the breeding season that these restrictions apply. That's from December 15th through June 30th. The schedule that we have now for the drilling, if we can stay on that schedule, we're looking at about a month's duration. If he starts mid-October, it'll be done mid-November, so it would be a non-issue. Further, they have these distances, these radii around the nest that you have to be clear. So the distance that we would have to abide by would be 330 feet. Our activity would need to be 300, if you're more than 330 feet from the nest, there's no issue. So where we have the biggest disturbance, if you apply common sense where you have noise and smoke and things like that, is well over 330 feet away from that nest. Is it in our limits of disturbance? Yes, we're about 140 feet. That new pipe that's being installed is about 140 feet from that nest, but it's 50 feet in the ground. So it's not really a disturbance. For all those reasons, Evelyn feels that in her judgment, it's going to be a non-issue, so.
And that's on the subaqueous side.
Real good.
The one action item is to approve the Del Dot agreement as discussed in executive session.
Oh, thank you, I forgot that. So do I have a motion to approve the Del Dot agreement as we discussed in the executive session?
I make a motion that we approve agreement that we discussed in executive session about Del Dot. And
Second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I'll cough and say aye.
Duly noted. Open forum, general discussion on the Hornkill project update. Austin?
Okay, so I'm gonna go
Vince?
6-2. So I was not able to attend, Robin attended, Charlie attended. WEAC did approve both the Hornkill and the 4th Street / Park Avenue project. I'm gonna start with the Hornkill. On the Hornkill project, they approved it. It's a 2% for a 20-year loan. They also provided up to $836,778 in principal forgiveness. This is to facilitate the remediation of septics and wells that reside in the floodplain. The caveat that they did provide, that I just want to make note of, and I talked with Ellen Lorraine on this as well, is that they did say these terms are subject to the 11 EDU's request for annexation into the city of Lewes. And so I spoke with Ellen Lorraine on this and the mayor. And so we're gonna coordinate with those 11 property owners and work towards that. The one thing that I'm gonna ask, a request and an action in this, is to allow staff, between Mike and I, to continue the process moving forward, which is the execution of all the binding commitment letters. All that's doing is moving the process along. The actual resolutions and going to the closing documents, that still will come back before the board for approval. So I'm just looking for the ability to move forward with binding commitment letters, which I've received on the DENREC side, but I still need to get on the DHSS side. That's the update on Hornkill. So that's what I would be looking for the Hornkill piece.
We have a motion to approve.
Just looking for a motion to approve staff to,
Yeah, staff to move forward on negotiations for Hornkill.
So moved.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And now, 4th Street and Park Avenue.
So this, very similar, no principal forgiveness on this one, but they did approve 30-year 2% on the original request and the supplemental that we went for. So that project's fully funded. I'm going to also ask for the,
To how much?
I don't know if I have the exact number. I don't know if I have the exact number in front of me, but it was the
Yeah,
full
I-
requested amount.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't bring it with me either.
Yes. Looking for the exact same motion so that I can keep that one moving as well. Charlie may have it.
I have it somewhere here too.
Charlie, you can unmute yourself if you have that number. There you go.
Yes, thank you. It's the total, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep, the total project is 8.588088. So $8.5 million, $8.6 million almost.
And with this one, because we are funding this project and it includes city improvements, we would also have a separate agreement that we would go through with the city as far as dedicating those improvements, signifying them out, and some sort of repayment method.
Yeah, and just to amplify, so the city portion that we're covering is the streets, curbs, and sidewalks.
Correct.
So, and we will have to do a separate agreement with the city with it.
So looking for the exact same, which is just the ability for staff to move forward.
I move that we approve the staff moving forward on this project.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I don't think I have anything more on the wastewater treatment plant than what I said in my opening statements. We're continuing to work forward with Sussex County and Rehoboth Beach. We have a meeting tentatively scheduled for October 7th with Rehoboth Beach. But that is subject to change at Rehoboth Beach's decision. And other than that, I can't think of anything else that's been new in the last month. And I know I've promised everyone a workshop on this, and I think once we get through at this next meeting with Rehoboth Beach, we will be ready for having that. Right now, there's just too many moving pieces, and it would only confuse matters versus helping them, so. Board and staff requests for agenda items for next month.
I've got one. Reviewing the minutes in the consent agenda, there was something in one of them about we're supposed to review the impact fees every 6 months. And I don't think we've done that, so maybe we should add it to the next agenda.
Yes, I think that 6 months is coming, or we're rated to 6 months, I think.
Okay, thanks.
Sharon brought that up during when she got back from vacation, I think, or her conference.
Any other items? Call to the public.
Hi, folks. Brenda Afzal, 418 Park Avenue. Sorry, here for the Burton subdivision community. And again, thanking Austin for really making sure that our interests went forward. That seemed like more money than I thought we were asking for. Does it cover any other roads, or is that just for Johnson and Park and Fourth?
4th Street, Park, all the way from 4th Street through Johnson to the intersection at Johnson and DuPont.
Okay. Any left over for DuPont or? I hear that you're really busy, but with the minute you're not busy, we're coming back to talk to you about next steps. But thank you. We're all very, very happy about this. And we wonder, is there anything that would put a barrier to this? Or it's a done deal now, you're going to be coming in and, so sorry, and doing the road and the water? Is it anything with the city or anything that could stop this, or we're good now?
No, I think we're good with the city, so.
We've got to tear up streets to put in the sewer, so we've got to put streets back over top of them.
And so that means it could be a barrier, or,
No, just that
no?
it's a lot of disruption, I think
Right.
is what Andrew was trying to get to.
Yeah,
Okay.
just from a process standpoint, so binding commitment letters get signed, it goes to bond counsel. Bond counsel works through their process on closing documents. They draft the resolutions for both entities. It goes before both entities. Once it's approved by both entities, those resolutions are sent off, and then they're included in the closing documents. You go to closing. Once you go to closing, then they'll issue a PO. That usually starts the trigger
Got
for
it,
your
got it, got it.
engineering and design, and then you
Yeah.
filter through.
So, but as far as the city is concerned, and you are willing to move forward with this, and that's what I'm hearing from you, a commitment to get this done. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. I had just a couple of other, every time I come here, I learn something new about the city, so a couple of other questions. The tower antenna, you were listening, talking about the aesthetics of it. Didn't hear anybody ask about I'm a nurse, public health implications of the EFRF?
It's not a valid basis to oppose a request.
They're federal, the feds give them the right to put these towers up.
Okay, so I was still wondering about the effects to the public with the combination of multiple sites. So I just wondered if, particularly for the workers who are going up there, because I know that the regulation is,
Well, as Austin said,
concern.
when we go up top on the tank,
yeah,
we ask them to shut the towers down.
Our staff, when we go up there, we ask for all of that RF turned off. And when we have consultants that climb the tower, like we had one just a couple of weeks ago,
yeah.
they coordinate themselves. If they feel comfortable going up, that's on them.
Okay.
But that all falls under the federal regulations, so.
Yeah, there are, and you know what those
Yeah.
regulations are, obviously. The meeting you're having October 7th, I hear you saying it's going to be board, but that will be an open meeting that people can sit in the room and listen into things and.
Well, which one? There's two meetings.
I assumed it was the strategic planning
yes,
session.
that will be open.
That will be open, okay. What was there, one other thing? Oh, the lead survey. They said there were 2 surveys that went out. I checked, one of our block captains is here. She didn't get the first survey. I didn't get the first survey. Did get the second survey. I was confused because it said it was, it was for the city, and then it had somewhere in another state that we're sending it to. I went, gosh, is this really junk mail or something? Should I really send this in?
So we're using 120 Water, which it's a national firm that we're using. So they collect it, they put it into a database, then we review it. What I'll tell you is the first round, they looked at, again, this may be too much, but I have to say it. So they looked at when building permits were issued. So if there was a building permit issued, if you have a newer house, they looked at that house and said, oh, when the building permit was done, everything was replaced, right? That's not necessarily, I don't know too many places that that's how it works. And so we had to step back and say, okay, issuing a building permit, meaning if you're tearing a house down and building again, that doesn't mean that our service is replaced all the way out to the main. So that's why some people didn't get included in the first round, which is why we stepped back and said, take that all out, and we started kind of from fresh in different areas. That's the synopsis. That's why some people may have not gotten the first one and got the second one.
Okay. I'm just going to make sure that our group, I'll send a message out to our group and say, respond if you got the,
And we talked
because it was a
about-
little confusing.
And we talked about sending out an email blast, and I believe, don't we have some at the front at the office? Do we have, I can't remember either. We may have extras, so if somebody needs them, we can.
It's a good idea if you're sending out an email blast to tell them they're returning it, because they're going to be confused. They think they're supposed to return it to you, and it's, I just thought it was like junk
Well,
mail.
they can return it to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can take them and manually.
I'll bring mine up tomorrow. I had to talk to my builder to find out if he had replaced all that, so it took a few minutes. And I'm really excited that there might be some funding for the lead and copper replacement if it turns out, because we have some folks in our community who have been living in those those houses a long time, and God knows if they have lead pipes in their home. So it'd be nice if somehow that, if we can help in any way to communicate about the folks in our community, we're happy to do that.
And we'll be doing a lot of messaging as it relates to that, to follow the steps as far as lead and copper. We've already initiated discussions with the state on funding opportunities. That's where we learned about the underserved piece.
Yeah.
So it doesn't look like it's as easy as a pot of money to go and grab. So it's something that we're working through, but we know financially it can be a huge burden. And because that private side replacements can't burden the homeowner, which means it falls back on the utility company, it's going to be a huge expense on our side that we're going to have to work through.
Yeah, anyway, well, thank you all again. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Can you guys hear me? Yes. Okay. Hey, Bob, for the question that you had, Bob, about the budgeting, I think it might be beneficial to do it publicly. For our budgeting, I do a historic data of revenues and expenses. And after the yearly budget is approved, then I use those averages to set them up by month. So it's not like just divided by 12 and spread it over.
So you're doing rolling average, like you're looking at, for example, October of '24 versus October of '23?
Yes. So when I actually break up that total, I'm looking specifically at October's historic percentages.
Okay, I guess the obvious question, or where I started all that, was when we're halfway through the year, so, and we have we're a little bit ahead of the budget.
Right.
We are likely to end up still a little bit ahead or a shrinking amount ahead. That's.
Yes.
That was.
We will still likely
I didn't think that was
be
exactly.
ahead.
Rhetorical question.
Do you have a response, Kim, or?
We will still be ahead. And yeah, we'll still be ahead. I did have those numbers, but not one review for an updated year to date of what we expected our year to end at.
Okay.
We can see next month too.
And yep, next month will be Q2 presentation, so that will be updated as well of the new expectation.
And we're always keeping an eye on power supply. I mean, you guys just attended, and that's volatile right now. So we'll see, because DMEC's fiscal year, DMEC does calendar year, not fiscal. So their calendar year, any rate increases they have as far as their budget process goes into effect in January. I can't remember if I think it's January billing for February. So we would see that increase before we would be in a position where we would, that would hit our fiscal year before we would go through the next budgeting process.
Yeah, and if it's just a couple percentage, we'll just roll it through the power cost adjustment. But if it's something larger, like we saw earlier this year, we would recommend a rate change.
Okay, thank you very much, Kim.
You're welcome. Have a great night, guys.
You too.
Bill, call to the press.
You mentioned that you approved the DelDOT agreement for the canal crossing. What does that agreement say?
So that's the one step. It's for, because it was a former railroad. And so to use the railroad, you have to sign an agreement with DelDOT, and then that's the last step to get the DelDOT permit.
Okay. And then what is the timetable? I think on Friday, your meeting on Friday, you mentioned, was it 4 months to get it done, or? So
we are working on as expedited as possible. I think
it's 126 days.
Contract days.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we,
Up and running.
yeah, our goal is to be ahead of that, but that's what the contract length is.
Okay.
But the drilling is a much smaller portion than that, so the real noisy part of it is 4 weeks, 6 weeks.
Yeah.
4 weeks is what they're telling us.
But set expectations. I mean, I don't think we're gonna be out of using the new line for, pick it, 6 months, 7 months, something like that.
No, our goal is, the way that we envision this is Teal's gonna try and work concurrently if they can. So they will do the work on American Legion Road while the drilling crew does the drill from American Legion Road to, this side of town. And then we talked about, once the drill's done, we would do our pressure testing and chlorination, for a back T test. And then hopefully all the stars align. Our goal is to get the main up and running first, final restoration last.
Understand, but 126 days sounds like, January to a lot of people. So if everything goes well, no big hiccups, you're still talking spring for
For the main to be on?
to be tied in and.
No, that's what you said,
Problem
the,
solved.
the open cut on American
Yeah, I
Legion.
understand.
Our goal, and I may be ambitious, our goal is before the beginning of the year.
Okay, I'm suggesting we give Bill a date that's a little bit,
Yeah.
that's.
But we're not starting till late October, right? So
Potentially mid-October.
mid-October.
Yeah. I mean, the stars would have to align to hit like the end of the year, beginning of next year. Obviously, contract date gives them a little bit more time, but our goal is to,
Yeah,
and the
but I
contractor is
think-
aligned with our goal.
I think
so.
for the public, that's great if everything aligns, but we're really talking about February timeframe.
Earliest.
Yeah.
That's fine. You got.
Okay.
We have our goals. Staff has their
That's
goals.
not our expectation of you, Austin,
Yeah.
that's to set an expectation for the public. Because, I mean, we don't know snowstorms, whatever's gonna happen, hiccups along the way. So let's not be overly aggressive and underperform.
I can be ambitious.
I think
I
what
know-
Austin is saying is that the things that Austin and GMB and the contractors control is going to continue to be expedited as much as within our capacity.
Richard, you hit it on the head.
Did you get that all down?
Richard, say it one more time.
Richard Nichols says,
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
all right. Seeing that, do you have a motion to adjourn? Oh, no.
Yeah, no,
Do we
no.
do we need an executive session?
No.
Okay. Then a motion to adjourn,
So moved.
in a second.
I'll second enthusiastic.
You gonna vote for it this time?
Yes.
All those in favor? Aye.
That's because
Thank
Robin.
you.